Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Living a Full Life. I'm Dr. Enrico Dolcicore,
I'm Dr. Christine Hafer.
special guest today. And we are talking today about self-care. Self-care for those parenting years that are difficult times. I thought we'd bring in two pros.
You have to have a mom when you talk about self-care.
You have to, yeah, I couldn't do it by myself. I had to bring her in to do this. She's like, hang on a second, don't you dare talk about self-care. And here we are. But it is such a challenging time. We are in it in the moment. Some of you have been in it and your kids are older. Some of you are getting into it. You've had your first kid. And you'll learn very quickly within the first, 14 hours that self-care is now off the table and it's all about a new life in your family. But those are special years. So we're going to go through a couple things today about the realism, I'm going to call it, of self-care and what to really expect from it, because your life does shift.
Yeah. And it's with young children, it feels fully impossible. In my opinion, it was fully impossible to have any real self-care. With a 4-year-old, our youngest is 4 now. I feel like she's in school a little bit. I've made a little bit of time for myself for the first time in 9 years that, I'm actually getting my cup filled on a regular basis. So we'll talk about, maybe strategies for parents with young children, because that's relatively impossible. But what we can be focusing on, there seems to be some confusion about what self-care is. It's not bubble baths. It might be bubble baths for you, but for most people, it's not, bubble baths and chocolate. It's a lot deeper than that. There's a lot more that we need as people, as parents,
100%.
to make sure that we can be giving. So I had a definition. It's a pretty sad definition. Cambridge Dictionary, the self-care definition is the practice of caring for yourself when you are ill or to stop yourself from becoming ill. That's a pretty sad definition. And then the other one they have is the practice of doing activities that you enjoy or that are relaxing, especially in order to improve or avoid stress. Probably better, still not really on it. There's a lot that gets missed with those two things.
Tons. Yeah. I mean, not the nicest definition there. I hope we're going to step above that a little bit and talk about that. I coach, clients from around the world as well. And we talk about work-life balance. I love that one because I just tell them there is no such thing. Tell me your definition of work-life balance, and they'll give me some type of fairy tale thing about that. And I'm like, that is wrong. That's never going to happen. So when it comes to self-care, we have to set realistic expectations because our children do take a lot from us at that time, and we're more than happy to give it. I know that, but there's a definition to what we need to follow when it comes to self-care. Where do you start?
And as well, and the other thing I'll add too is, especially as parents, the way that we parent. So reading a book called The Fourth Turning is Here. It's very popular right now. And it's talking about the generations and how they're going to handle the next 10 years and what's coming and what's happening. And the boomer generation parented differently than we do. The Gen Xer parents were very, very, I guess they weren't the latchkey kids, right? They made sure that there was always someone there. And then the millennial parents probably took it even a step further. So parents, when we think about older generations, we put a lot more, everybody puts into parenting, but our culture puts so much into parenting that it can leave us with nothing left, which is really, really common thing that we hear from myself. I said it for many, many years, and then from our mom patients as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some of the real self-care things. So not a bubble bath, but what are some good ones? Sleep is a really big one. Sleep, again, is impossible when you have small children, especially small children who don't sleep. Our first didn't sleep.
Yeah, for sleep from a health perspective, we talk about this so often on the podcast, is the number one health benefit to everything in your life. I mean, aside from water and food, sleep is number one. So yes, it gets interrupted. Yes, the baby takes full control of the night. Yes, the vampires come in at night to wake you up. Yes, they do this, but you have to keep this at the utmost priority to get sleep. And that means having a system to make sure that you fall into sleep. You have to, whether it's 90 minutes at a time or whatever. REM is so important when it comes to this. So we'll go back to Dr. Hafer here.
And we were so sleep deprived with our first that we ended up we hired a sleep specialist, and we took a sleep course. And what we learned, I'll always remember, it's 3 hours. So a 3 hour sleep cycle is what adults need to really repair and replace. So if you really cannot get sleep, if you can get a committed 3 hours of sleep, if you have a baby that's up every hour, like babies do to feed, maybe your partner can take the baby for a couple wakes, so you can get 3 hours, and then you make sure that your partner gets 3 hours. 3 hours of sleep really does it. It's not enough,
No.
but it will keep you, at least surviving. um, you know 8 hours is great. That'd be ideal. And sometimes we need more sleep. I know, especially with training and exercising, sometimes you need 9 hours of sleep. It's not always possible, but if you can commit to trying to get yourself sleep, that's a great commitment. Not always possible with
Right.
young children.
Number one, that's a good start.
Number
Sleep.
one. Number two, food. Food. So one of the things that was a takeaway for us was meal prepping. So when we were both home, we had some time preparing meals, especially lunches. Lunches were a big one because
Huge.
we're really, really busy. Now we're packing the kids' lunches for school, and we have to make sure that we have food too, because if you don't have a meal, you end up going and grabbing, whatever's quick down the street, or a lot of moms end up not eating. And that's really, really hard too. A steady stream of nutrients is a good idea. I know intermittent fasting is really big right now. It's not great for parents with young kids. It can be really great for healing guts, but it can increase the cortisol response. And that is not something we need when so many parents are already in adrenal fatigue because they haven't been sleeping and they've been taking care of this new life that they didn't realize it would be so challenging to take care of.
Right. How important is food during breastfeeding? I mean, for mom, keeping yourself nourished, it's really important. See moms running into obstacles during breastfeeding, whether it's dietary allergies that are passed on to the child and they get rashes or they get reactions to the breast milk, and then mom's got to go on this like super cleanse diet, gluten-free, dairy-free. So when we start getting into that stuff, now you're depleting most of the foods that you normally used to eat, and now you're trying, what do you eat? That becomes so important.
And especially with breastfeeding, during pregnancy, we get depleted. It's just a fact. Anyone who says that, you come out healthier and more nourished after, it's impossible. If you think about, like, an example is flamingos, they lose their pink when they have babies, and it takes them 4 years to get their pink back because they're so depleted. We are absolutely depleted for years and years. So, maybe you can work on getting your sleep, but you have to get your food, and it's got to be high quality. It's got to be your protein. Protein is probably the most important. Your fruits, your vegetables, good fats, some carbs, some healthier carbs, especially during breastfeeding, super important.
Yeah.
But then having those meals ready to go we didn't do that when I don't think I was nursing our first 3 when they were young, but that would have been amazing to have the food just ready to go, just warm it up and eat it.
Yeah. And then my best tip for that is just when you cook, you roast a bunch of vegetables in the oven, you cook some extra meat for dinner, it's fresh for that night, you eat it that night, and then you contain these for lunch the next day or for dinner the next day, and you have 3 or 4 of these in the fridge to maintain some food that's ready to grab again. And then you keep these healthy and you create healthy habits. It all starts in the kitchen with cooking healthy food first. That's the best way that's my tip for that, for meal prepping for that.
And so I'm going to switch gears. Instead of going through our list, talk more personal, or ask you a personal question. What do you do for self-care, Dr. Enrico?
Yeah. Well, I'm a dad. So, and I've learned through observation that moms completely sacrifice. The word sacrifice is pretty much the definition mother in the dictionary right there. So dads, we get a little bit more freedom. We have to go to work. We have to go do something. Maybe we get out of the house more often. We actually see other human beings on the face of the planet. We get to interact. We get some social involvement. We get our cups filled a little bit as a dad. So my best advice for that is just take what you can get and make sure you give back to the home. So for me, self-care, and I didn't know I missed it until I started going back, is exercise. I completely took that out of my game for a couple of years because we were in it. We had a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And, it's so busy at home that for me was exercise. That's the long answer to that. Exercise was my self-care. Golf was a bonus if I could get that in. My wife said, "Can you please choose non-7-hour activities? That'd be great."
Yeah.
So when I look back at that, I'm like, holy smokes, like I get so much more from that. It doesn't make it less important. It's still important to get that in.
Dad still need it too.
Yeah, for sure. Dads need that too. But you realize it. But here's the mom's perspective on this. When there is no golf,
Golf is really a long,
there's no nothing.
it's a long hobby.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say probably the biggest ones I focused on, I think me personally, self-care when the kids were little was trying to sleeping whenever I could and trying to eat. As you know, I would say with the 2-year-old, you have a tiny bit more flexibility because you don't always have a baby nursing. And it's not up all the time. It was, getting upstairs and going on the Peloton and exercising or going for a walk outside, maybe taking the dog, whatever. Now with a 4-year-old, I have scheduled self-care time. I just learned how to do this like 3 months ago. It's really amazing. When I took one day when our youngest has school, she's only in VPK 3 days a week pre-K. And I have one day that's 3 hours. It's dedicated to whatever I need to get done. So I do appointments. It might be I'm getting my hair done tomorrow. It's really exciting. It might be a coffee date, going on a coffee date with a friend, having a great conversation, or catching up with somebody that's important. And going to therapy. Sometimes we need to go to therapy, right? We all have traumas in our life, and some are harder to get over. So having someone to talk through and to get past a trauma spiral, that's great too. There's just so many things that once you actually have committed self-care time, you can do.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it gets so sparse that taking the dog for a walk counts as self-care.
Or shower.
Or
That's a big
shower.
one.
How do you
For years, a shower was like I had to ask, can you watch the
Mhm.
children, or ask
Mhm.
someone to come watch the children so that I could have not a luxurious 30-minute shower, a 10-minute shower
Right.
where I could wash my hair and shave my legs and then maybe dry off and put my hair in a towel.
Without worrying that a child's going to die.
And listening, and the phantom baby cries still happen even when your youngest is 4 years old.
Right. It's scary as a parent. I mean, to leave your kids, unattended. So we're always, we may not be helicoptering our kids, but we got to see them, right? It's just a natural parental instinct. So some moms get it, some moms don't when it comes to that. 'Cause some of them are just cool with like, here, watch TV. I'm gonna have a shower and come back. Some parents are like, no, that's not cool. I need to keep an eye on them. So it all depends on your child, behavior types, and all that. But the simplest things, the best way to do it is to schedule it, to try and schedule it, to try and put it in there. It'd be like tomorrow morning, after the kids are dropped off and I have the one, I'm gonna try and get a shower in, or I'm gonna try and cook a breakfast. Try and get something in, or try and cook lunches or make lunches. It's just all about scheduling to try and make them there. And you know how a schedule goes. Sometimes you put a whole bunch of things on your list and you never get to it. But if you can get to the top 2 things,
or you have a sick kid
Or you have a sick-
and
something
your
comes up.
entire week is thrown off,
shot. Yeah,
and then you hope for it next week is the reality.
that's reality.
All right, getting back to it. So one of the biggest things I've used, and I know a lot of moms that use this too, is exercise. And I know you use exercise. I use exercise. I'm a very kinesthetic person. That's really important to me. And I think we got a Peloton, which I'm not promoting Peloton, but we got that when our youngest was 6 months old. And then I would go upstairs for 20 minutes and I would really focus on, exercising. It doesn't have to be anything hard. It's just 20 minutes for myself with some nice music to listen to and a movement in my body. But exercise is one of those things that we really can prioritize. And we're pretty encouraged to do, exercise, and we're pretty encouraged to be consistent with exercise in our society. So that's one that people won't side eye you if you say, I'm going to go work out. They'll say, okay, good job. Congratulations. There's some other things, people kind of shun or ask, why do you have to do that?
And don't worry about that. I mean, you do what is important to you, and that's your values, right? You're always going to go by what you value. And if it's health and wellness, it's going to be more the exercise, clean food, going somewhere fun for a healthy meal, those things. If it's not, then it's other things. Maybe you want to go and get something quick, or it's not exercise, it's going to do something else, whatever it may be. These things are all just things that we try and get done to give ourselves some time in the real world as a parent.
The next one I have, and I think this is beyond self-care, this is boundaries and defense and taking care of ourselves, is saying no. Saying no when things don't serve us, saying no when we really don't want to do something just to please someone else. You want to talk about that one?
Saying no. Yeah. I mean, it's really tough. How hard is it with your kids? Your kids ask for so much and sometimes no comes out so easily because you have to. You're like, listen, there's not enough money or time to do everything that you want to do. No. So with kids, it comes out. But when it comes to within the relationship, just having an idea to be able to say no, feeling safe to say no takes two. It takes both of you to understand that it's a no doesn't mean not ever. It means just not right now. Please, we're drowning. So having that safe communication of just saying no can steer the ship. And usually moms take this on better, saying no, we can't do that this weekend. It's jam packed, or we've had an exhausting week. Let's just reacclimate for the weekend. So for me, yeah, no has to be something that is respected when it's said for whatever reason.
And I don't know that moms are better at it. I think that's my place in our relationship. Like that works for us. But
True.
I think that that's just somebody that maybe has more understanding boundaries and is a little more grounded. It could be, that could be anybody, not just a mom.
Not just moms. Yeah.
Next, spiritual health. So whatever that means to you, if that's taking a walk in the woods and peace and quiet, or, for us, it hasn't always been, but it's going to church. Going to church fills up my spiritual cup. It focuses me on what we need to focus on. Meditation is really, really popular. For some people it's spiritual, for some people it's not. For some people it's just calming their monkey mind, focusing on what's important. That's an important one too. Yeah. Disconnecting. That's my next one. Disconnecting from work, disconnecting from our phone, disconnecting from social media, disconnecting from whatever we know makes our brain more crazy and overstimulated.
Folks, we are connected to these things. It's an epidemic, honestly, when it comes to people's health and mental health. If you look at the time you spend on this thing, there's a feature on your phone that tells you how much time you spent on your phone over the last week, and it reminds you. It should be, unless you turn this thing off, then you're a genius. But otherwise, this thing will tell you average 13.2 hours a day. And then you're like, hang on a second, I'm only awake for 12 hours. And you start doing the math and you realize now the screen app, I looked into it. I'm like, does this mean I'm actually doing stuff on my phone for 13 hours? No. It means every time the screen turns on, it's counting that as time. So every time you look at your phone for the time, which is not that much, but when you look at it for the time, that counts. And we spend so much time as adults on our phone. It is mind-boggling. The next generation, Gen Z, and how much time they're spending on their phones and tablets, because the world is there, but it's not reality. And the way we consume the information there is always in a self-pleasing way. That's why we consume it. How many of you are scrolling through there just looking at the Gaza Strip news all day? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's going to drive you absolutely chaotic. So, or Ukraine news. You spend 13 hours a day reading about the Ukraine. I mean, this stuff's going to drive you absolutely crazy. So we do not do that. What do? We go through social media. TikToks. Watch happy videos and how to prank your neighbors. But because it's funny, the cat videos or dog videos, and it creates a dopamine response in our brain. And it's causing a lot of health issues for a lot of people. It's keeping them sedentary. It's decreasing circulation. It's cognitive disconnect. A lot of people are suffering cognitive. They come in saying it's brain fog or memory, and they're in their 40s. I'm like, it's really not. You need to refocus and you need to get moving. So sometimes by getting moving and doing something more, or taking the dog for a couple extra walks during the day, decreases your screen time, and then you create a positive feedback loop. That was an aside, but just that downtime, no screen time for the research shows 60 minutes before falling asleep to give the brain a chance to do that. Tough to do. A lot of us turn off the phone like, okay, let's go to sleep. But at least turn it off, take the stuff out of the bedroom, keep lights out of the bedroom, just to improve our sleep and our condition. And here's one great habit. When you first wake up in the morning, don't look at anything digital. Like the first thing that goes into your head should not be digital. It should be getting up and looking in the mirror to brush your teeth, or going to the bathroom. Just that's how you should start your day. and something positive. Just leave something positive.
Or waking up with a touch of gratitude, just
Gratitude.
waking up, opening your eyes and saying thank you for another day, because we don't know. The other thing, I was just looking at a study about how adult parent cell phone use affects kids. So they were looking at, we're starting to look at kids and just how, a parent looking at their phone instead of engaging with them. And sometimes we have to work. Sometimes we have to communicate with people. We have to keep up with our friends. We have to keep up with our family. We have to keep up with our jobs and our bosses. And, sometimes we can't sit down the phone. But, that mindless scrolling and staring at your phone instead of eye contact with your children, that's really starting to affect our children. So I think the study I was reading said that children feel depressed, they feel sad, they feel alone when they have a parent with them who's just staring at a phone and not at them. So, I mean, that's self-care for our children, and also teaching them not to stare at a phone constantly, because we're trying to get off of them ourselves. We don't want to model that for our children.
Self-care for you too, modeling, right? And how to be modeling better for your kids. Yeah, absolutely.
So the next one I have is get outside. Yeah, I think that's pretty. Walk in nature, get outside. I sat out one morning. It was glorious. I made myself a coffee. I was up before anybody else was. That never happens. There's always a child that wakes us up every single morning, especially on the weekend. Saturday and Sunday, they wake up the earliest.
What is up with that?
But I sat out and I just watched the sun come up with a cup of coffee, and the dog came and sat next to me. And it set my whole weekend. And I just felt, centered and connected. And it was just me sitting outside in peace. But that doesn't happen very often. That's literally I think that's the first time this year that's happened. And it's October. A big one, physical space, decluttering and organizing. So I think Enrico could probably talk more about this because, I'm the one who does a lot of the decluttering and organizing, which is funny, but he's the one that really needs the open countertop and the things that are organized. Ironic that I am the one who does it, and it's usually cleaning up your stuff.
I thought you setting me up here. I'm like, hang on.
I'm not.
I shouldn't be talking about this because I create.
You do, but
the chaos.
But I
create.
But I think it's more important for you. I think mentally you need a decluttered space more than I do. I think I work better in clutter, but yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. You did set me up.
I didn't set you up purposely.
I know how to create the mess. But it's so important because, and there's a lot of brain and neuroscience that goes behind decluttering and organization. It actually calms you down. It decreases your heart rate. It decreases your circulatory patterns and hormones as well. Cortisol goes down as well with an organized space to do work or whatever it is. Or for me, it's the kitchen too. My wife does 85% of all the stuff when it comes to cooking and house and all that, but I love to get in there some days and try and cook or get out on the grill or do. So for me, it's got to be clean, or at least tidy, so I know where everything is at, and I clean as I go. And she always says that. How do you do that when you're done cooking and it's on the table? The kitchen's also clean. It's because that's how I operate. And same thing with work. My desk, I need space. I need some elbow space to put my elbow down and write down. And I'm guilty of it a lot. I will pack right up to my elbows, and as long as the clear path for the keyboard and the monitor is there, I'm good to go. I can get work done. But I am way more stressed when it's in that environment, and all my staff laugh at me because that's how I work, and I wonder why I'm always so stressed. So the best thing is just having a tidy workspace, working and then cleaning up, so that it's not like a month goes by and now you're like, oh, how do I clean up a month's worth of work? And I'm guilty of this, so don't think I'm talking down to anybody on that.
Yeah, it's hard, and we're not Marie. This is not an ad for Marie Kondo. We're not going to tell you how to declutter your space, and honestly, I declutter when I just can't take it anymore. And I have enough time to do it. I did a little bit yesterday and it was, great. I just put piles into piles, but we had open counter space for a little bit. So that was nice.
We moved season 2 of the podcast here because now you don't get to see all my kids' toys in the background in the living room. That was the main reason, and just to get some better sound and stuff. But trust me, organization can mean a bunch of different things. It can be all the kids' toys right there, but organized, and then your stuff right there and organized. Not all of us can afford a 17-bedroom mansion to do all this stuff. So we get it.
Yeah. Moving on, since we're not actually giving you any tips on how to declutter, just saying it's important.
So, yeah.
Scheduling time for self-care. I talked about this being a really big game changer. You don't realize as a mom when you're in it with a mom with little kids, especially babies, how chaotic that time is. It is, I was just thinking about this now that we're out of that phase. I don't have words for it. It is, I don't even know. I don't have a proper word for it. It's chaos, but it's like your brain is chaotic too. Um, so I don't even know why I brought this up, but yes, so having this time scheduled for self-care for myself when I can think about what I need, that's mind blowing because you don't get any time to think about what you need. It's literally just get done whatever you can get done and it's not going to be enough. But if you can schedule time for self-care, if maybe you have a young child, or you have a baby and you have someone that you feel confident could watch that child for a couple hours to just go get yourself a coffee and breathe, or go for a walk, or just sit and do nothing, whatever fills your cup up. And it's funny because as a mom, it's sometimes when you have free time and you don't have it regularly, it's very overwhelming because there's so many things you need to get done. There's a list of the things that need to get done at home. And then, there's a list of things that you need to do to take care of all the people in your home. And then maybe there's, like, I need this for me, it comes last. So if you can actually prioritize that, I have more energy to feed into our relationships and take care of my children and be present with them, and work on our relationship. Working in a marriage is not easy. It's a choice that we make and you have to work at it, right? Anyone who says marriage is easy is completely lying. It takes effort, it takes focus. So when you take care of yourself, you have a little bit of time to focus on the things that really are important to you in your life externally. um, so yeah, and then if you are able to schedule time for yourself, then you guard it with your life. You do everything you can to maintain that, because once you force yourself to have that time and you take that time, you realize what you were missing without it. Um, I think one thing that we're pretty good at talking about in our society is mental health. I feel like as far as generations go, millennials are great at talking about mental health. Really, really good. Um, so, if you've had trauma, seeking therapy and finding a good therapist, and that's really important to get you out of a trauma cyclone. It can really wear you down. And you do have to work on it. And sometimes you have to put in the work, and sometimes it's really uncomfortable. Self-care is not fluff. Sometimes we don't want to do self-care that we need to do, but consistency helps. If you decide you're going to do it, if you're the kind of person that decides they're going to do it and they keep going, great. But therapy can be really important for people, or whatever you need to fill your mental self-care cup.
Yes.
And it might not feel good and you might not want to do it. But again, it's not bubble baths that we're talking about here. It's truly working on yourself.
The absolute basics. I hope this is helpful for parents out there, because we know how it is and we see you. The nice thing about being a healthcare provider in this field of family care is we see it, we feel it. We come home all the time like, oh my gosh, this family's going through this family's doing this. How they manage all that. And we see it, and there's a common ground between all of us of this mission to help our families be as healthy and well as possible. That's really all we're trying to do, is just try to get through this, right, in one piece. So we're all in this together. And when we talk about self-care, and I like the work-life balance fantasy, this stuff doesn't exist. So when it comes to self-care, you got to have a realistic. There was pre-kids life. Remember that? Pre-kids life.
And
then there's kids life.
But pre-kids life you thought was crazy.
Remember that? Oh my gosh. How embarrassed are you for all the things that you've said before kids?
And the things that you said to your friends that had kids when you didn't realize.
Word. Like, I still just put my hand on my. Did I say that? I remember saying I was busy before kids. I remember saying that like many, many times. Oh, I was so busy.
We met with a coach once, and they laughed in our faces, and we were not offended, but we were confused. But now we understand why they laughed in our face when we said we were just too busy to add anything else on pre-kids.
Yeah, tell us to do things in our business. We're way too busy for that. And I look back, I'm like, holy crap. And it's amazing what you can get done as a parent. That's why I call you guys superheroes. You're literally, moms are superheroes. Dads are superheroes. We are walking superheroes. We don't look like it. We don't feel like it. But we are superheroes out there because the things that we can get done is absolutely amazing. And that's what gives us, it fills our cup, is that purpose. Remember, that's why you're doing this. You wake up, you want to commit murder some days, but you don't because they fill your cup. And that's how we move forward with that. So yeah, take it with a grain of salt. You're all doing so great. That's why I brought Christine in on this one, because no one better than a mom to talk about the strains of hair for self-care that you get. But just making time for it. You're important. You go down, the fortress goes down. You guys know that. You absolutely know. That's always when the kids all get sick. Why is mom doesn't get sick? Somebody has to stay.
Or if mom does get sick, it doesn't matter. She just keeps going.
Yeah, right.
No dad cold time.
Yeah, no dad flu time. Great, guys. Thanks for joining us for another episode. We'll catch you next week. If you have anything that you want us to talk about, we love your feedback. That's how we build all this, all these talks about it. And we love doing it. And we'll bring in the right people to do it. Have a great week. Stay well. Stay healthy. Take care.